Right, put some engine oil in this. Now, pull this dipstick out. Oh, look clean. Now, they're fucking hard to see on these. You see, if I've got that in, there's like a little mark there and a little mark there, very faint, but yeah, there, obviously that's low and that's full. Now you actually do your oil level with the engine oil hot. So I'm just going to sit there on there for a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'll put so much in and check the levels. I've got a part one here with about 520 ml in. So I'm just going to empty that in, and then 2 full uns, and then we'll see where the level is, because before I start it up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the plugs out and turn it over a few times without the plugs in, just to get some oil pumping through. Because remember, this time, well, it'll be the same every time I suppose, but maybe because I had the oil cooler off this time and took pipes off and everything, because I put the new pipes on, there'll be a little bit more oil to splash around the system. It's surprising how it fills up. You know, as I say, it'll go down a hell of a lot when I start, when I turn the motor over and start pumping oil around the system. So we'll put a bit more in there. I was just keeping an eye on it there because I didn't want it to overflow. Basically the level's about here, but that'll go down a lot when I start it up. Sorry, when I turn it over. Just knock this torch off. And I'll just put that in. Yeah, this is the one, when you do come to actually do your level properly, that's the one that you push in all the way to get your level correct, not the gearbox one. Ooh. Right, I'll knock you off a minute. I'm just going to whip the plugs out and then we'll turn it over and then put some more oil in it. I'll be back in a minute. Right, I've took the plugs out and I'm just going to turn this thing over until the oil light goes off. How long it takes for the oil light to come back on. There. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the other side, pull the plug out and lay it on a bit of rag, and I'm going to see where the oil level's gone. Now bear in mind the oil level was here when I started, and it's not massively far away. It's gone down a good inch in there. So the way, I don't know if I'll be able to do this. Let's see, because the ignition's still on, I'm going to see if I can press this button up here and see if we can see it coming back. Right, you could see it moving about. See how long it takes for the light to come back on. Try and block the fucking sunlight. There, the oil light's just come back on. I'll tell you what I've just noticed, the fucking neutral switch isn't illuminating. Just have a waggle on here. That's better. Maybe just a bit of shit on there. So I was just pushing it backwards and forwards then, make sure it was actually out of gear. Right, so as you can see there, we pumped it until the oil light went off, and then we carried on pumping it till it stayed off. I'll fucking start there again. We pumped it until the oil light went off and then stopped, and it came on pretty much straight away. And then we pumped it again, turned the motor over, should I say, for a good while. And then when I turned it off, stopped turning it over, should I say, you see how long it took for the oil light to come back on. That means it's keeping its pressure in there, which is a good sign. So what I'll do is I'm just going to put the plug back in the oil tank, and then I'll bring it back. We'll put some new plugs in it, and then we'll fire it up. And then once it's been running for a while, obviously I'll knock it off while it's ticking over, but once it's been running for a while and got up to temperature, I'll knock it off, let it settle for maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll check the transmission and the engine oil level again. Right, I'll be back in a minute. Right, got my new plugs. Now I already checked the gap on these. When I did my electric glide, I took these ones out and made sure the gaps were right on these as well. So I don't need to check them. So I'll get the fucking old one out of the way first. So the old ones that were in here were Champion RA8HCs. I'm putting the 6R12 Harley ones in. Just screw it in finger tight. Take that front out. It's another thing as well, you notice there I had the plugs in the leads. Now, I don't know what more modern stuff's like, but there used to be, with electronic ignitions, if you turned the bike over without the plugs in, it could damage the electronic ignition. So it's just a habit of mine. I always take plugs out and put them in and have them on so they can spark, so that at least it's spark and it won't damage the electronic ignition. Right. Hopefully I'll be able to get I have to use an extension for this and use the torque wrench, which would help. I've set this torque wrench at 16 and I'll just nip them both down. There's always fucking something in the way. Right, I'll turn this torque wrench up to 24. Right, so that's them torqued up. Just take the tension off this. So plug leads back on. And what we'll do now is we'll actually fire it up and let it tick over. Well, let it tick over and get up to temperature. There it is. And once it's up to temperature, we'll knock it off, let it settle for 5 minutes, and then we'll check the oil levels again in the transmission and the engine. Tick over for a while, so I'll knock it off, I'll come back when we've knocked it off and let it settle. Right, the engine got itself up to temperature, or near enough. It ran for enough time anyways that the oil's fully around the system. So I'm going to check this. It's been off for about 5-10 minutes, so it's cooled down a bit anyways. Where is it on there? 110 Fahrenheit. Just grab my torch. spec somewhere, that's it. It's gone down quite a bit in there. Probably another ½ inch it's gone down anyways from after we turned it over with the and I'd say that is just below the lowest, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to put some more oil in it. I've just opened a fucking new one. What's in that one? Oh, dumbass. Glad I didn't just tip that in, it's transmission oil. Right, just a little bit to start with. It's better to creep up on it. I was just watching the, the temperature gauge go up then. Right, that's about, oh, maybe a third of the way from the bottom line to the top. A little bit more. Getting closer. Put a little bit more in. I've got to be careful, I don't want to overfill it. Because one thing I have seen over the years, if you slightly overfill these soft tails, they can fucking blow it out through the rubber. You end up with oil coming down your side of your oil tank. And looking at that, that's up to the mark, well, it's just below the mark by about 1 millimetre. So that, so see the temperature gauge, that I'm happy with. So that's the engine oil level up to where it wants to be. So the next thing to check is this gearbox. I have to be careful this time, the fucking exhaust will be hot. I'm just going to drop you down a bit. So I'll try and do this without fucking burning myself. And I'll also try and remember that you don't shove it all the way in. Should I say you don't screw it in. Right. And that is on the full. It's just a touch over the full, but that'll be fine. I don't know what would happen if you actually massively overfilled a well, I do know, you froth up and stuff, but I know that one of my mates, quite a while ago, it was an early twin cam, he, I think it was a Softail standard, he filled it up while it was on its side stand to the full mark, and he then went on a run into Europe, and he came back. He was doing some work on his bike, and I had gone to visit him, and when he dipped his oil, I seen that it was on just, honestly, it was like less than a millimetre below the full mark. That was while it was sitting on its side stand. And I says, fuck me, you've filled that fucking far too full. And he said like that he'd done it before he went on a run, and he'd done about 4,500 miles around Europe. So it didn't seem to do it any harm. It wasn't leaking oil anywhere out like that. But we got it to the right level anyways. So oil levels are now sorted. So I'm going to knock you off, set you up in a different area, and we'll get on with the next bit. Right, back soon. Right, last bit of checking or servicing, so to speak, is I'm just going to take the little covers off the grease nipples, and there's one which I've got lined up in this side, so I'll show you. I'll move you to the other side and see if I can get you in. What I'm going to do is just put a squirt in each of these. Just one squirt in each side. You don't want to over thing your bearings with grease, but you want to make sure it's got it in. Right, so put one squeeze in each side. Clean off the excess grease. And put the cover back on. Same on this side. Cover back on. Right, I'll take you off and see if I can get in at this one to show you where it's at. Right, I don't know if you can see, just in there there's a grease nipple, and I'm just going to put, all I'm going to do is put 2 pumps in that. It might be a little bit awkward to get on. First I'll stick my finger through and just wipe the shit off the top, just so it's not going in. That's handy. So 1, 2. Fucking hell. Went on easy, it fucking don't want to come off. That's it. And that's pretty much it for the servicing. Now, one thing I will say is every time we go out, I've been keeping an eye on the temperature of this diff. You know, because if you haven't got enough grease in, or you've got far too much in, it'll overheat. Anyways, every time we pull up, first thing I do is jump off mine and I just come and put my hand on there, because there's bearings in there. Same on that side, and then I just stick my finger in onto the pulley on both sides and see if there's any heat in it. And it's running at a decent sort of cool temperature, which is a good indication that it's lubed properly. Right, so as I say, that's pretty much the Trike serviced. While it was ticking over before, when I was warming it up, I was checking for oil leaks, checking in that front bit, because it was in there where it was leaking oil. So I was checking in there to make sure there was no dripping out or appearing, and there doesn't seem to be any oil coming from anywhere at the minute, so I'll be keeping an eye on it. So all I've got left to do now is just tighten the clutch up, as in the adjuster on that bit there. It's set. I just need to tighten that lock nut up and then pull that back over, and then basically it's just a case of giving it a fucking good wash. So yeah, so that's that serviced. Cool as. Right, that's it for now. Catch you later.